All right, welcome back for another episode of the Real Returns podcast. This is Andrew Riker, and I am joined with my co-host, Dan Croce. Dan, how are we doing over there?
I'm doing really well. It's a nice, hot, muggy day here in Pittsburgh, but we get a lot of those this time of year. But yeah, we're doing well. Excited for the show today and hang out with JC.
Yeah. Well, we got an exciting guest, JC, as Dan mentioned, and he gets to hang out in less humid weather, so he'll have to tell us where he's enjoying himself today. But really excited to introduce JC. He's become a friend of mine since we met at a conference a few years ago. We actually connect every month and check in with each other, see how we're doing. And he is actually CEO of Velo Residential. They're a third-party property management company that is really specializing in large-scale multifamily properties in the Texas and Oklahoma area. So, JC, welcome to the show. Would love it if you would just introduce yourself a little bit. Tell us about your history and your business and really what kind of got you going.
Before I do that, I wanted to thank you both, Andrew and Dan. It's great to connect with you guys. And Andrew, of course, we hook up a lot, and we've definitely developed a great friendship, and I have a lot of respect for your company and what you guys are building there at Burgo. So kudos to you guys. Quick background on myself. I am an engineer by degree. I've been in the multifamily business for about 15 years now, or maybe a little bit longer. And I am based in San Jose, California, but I have built a big multifamily operations and investment and third-party management business in the state of Texas. And so for the last 13 years, not only have we been buying and renovating properties, but we've also self-managed. So we built our own property management company that manages our own assets. I think we have about $150 million of properties under ownership currently. Over the last year and a half, we actually launched a new business, a third-party management company that specializes in helping other owners manage their properties. So the company is called Velo, like velocity, Velo Residential. We are based in Texas, and we are a third-party fee management company that handles clients from Oklahoma and Texas currently. So I'm excited about that company, and we've really been in high growth mode for the last year and a half, and lots of good things are happening.
Yeah. And it's been fun to follow your story over this last couple of years and watch you launch the third-party property management business. I'm curious, obviously you had done the vertically integrated side and been managing some of your own property. What really would you say made you have the desire to do the third-party?
Well, it's a great question, because I invariably I've been asked by a lot of different owners, or like, JC, why would you want to go build out a third-party management company? It's kind of a thankless business, if you ask me. And I think in some respects that may be a little bit true, but I actually am an operator at heart. I've always been really passionate about operations, and there's a lot of things that I learned the hard way, and that my team learned the hard way in building out our own property management company. But we also innovated, and we do things a lot differently and think differently than what I would call the traditional third-party management companies out there. And I think the reason is pretty simple, is that we started as owners, and we think like owners. And so there's a lot of things that we do to innovate at Velo Residential that are a direct result of things that we've developed and done as owners to ultimately to make more profits. At the end of the day, what I like to say about Velo Residential is that owners are for the most part very, very good people, and they want to build profitable businesses, and they should have every right to do that. And actually, profits are not just good for the owners; they're actually good for the residents, because when owners have profitable properties, they will, for the most part, put money back into the properties to keep their clients happy and keep them paying, more rent. So it is a completely, very complementary business to be in, both for the residents and for the landlords to be making profits and putting money back into properties. And so at the end of the day, Velo Residential is built by ownership people with ownership in mind, and we've created and innovated solutions that help drive profitability for owners. And so, as a person that's really passionate about operations and property management, the concept of a third-party management company had been kind of jingling around in my head for a year or two before I actually launched the company. And at the end of the day, I really thought, hey, I think we've built something really great, and I'd love to be able to share that with other owners and build it out as a completely separate company and offer ownership, I think, something that's a little bit different and more innovative than what I'm seeing in the traditional management companies. And that's exactly what Velo is. It's really just taking our systems and processes that we built out for the last 13 years and offering that to other owners that want to take advantage of it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and again, it's been fun to watch that. And, as an owner, I can see you taking an ownership mentality when it comes to other people's assets and really stewarding them in the way that you've stewarded your own assets. Now, I want to talk a little bit about a statement you made. It sounds like a bit of a provocative statement that actually having profit at property would be good for both the residents and the owners. And I'm curious, what would you say to maybe somebody that's a little bit more cynical when it comes to thinking of that as more of a zero-sum game? Somebody that would say, hey, you're really, profit at the properties is really just benefiting the owner, and they're just putting it back in their pocket. They're not reinvesting in the asset. What would you say to somebody that might have that kind of rebuttal?
I think some of the cynicism really ultimately comes from thinking of landlords as big corporate conglomerate machines that really don't have faces behind them. But if we go back and we really take a high level look at America as a country, 50% of this GDP in our country, about more or less, is small business, and most multifamily operators are actually not big conglomerates. They're actually, I would say, a little bit bigger than mom and pop, but not much bigger. Type of companies that have a limited amount of people that are working for the company, and really take more of a custom handheld approach to the business. And so if you think about, multifamily for the cynics out there, and you sort of relate it to maybe your local, bread bakery, right? If let's say you have a bread bakery with a small mom and pop person that has a dream to build a really great bread bakery in your neighborhood, and they open up a cute store, and they want to sell their bread for a good profit, but they're also really passionate about bread, and they want to give the best bread to their local neighbors who they actually probably all know. Well, I think that most people thinking about that person, if let's say his name is Joe at the bread bakery, could probably really relate to and want to support that local business and say, hey, if this guy's pumping out the best bread I've ever had, I'm going to continue to support that business. And if he's making the best bread, then I might be willing to pay a great premium for that bread. I think that when you look at Joe and you think about Joe and his local bakery, I think that you realize that that's the fabric of what this country was built on. And so if you relate that back to multifamily, I think it's a lot of the same ways. If you get to know these owners out there and you talk to them every day like I do, you realize that they are just like that bread baker for the most part. Now, there are some people that are not good stewards of the property, but for the most part, I think that's a small percentage, because when you don't take care of your property, I think you get flushed down the toilet bowl, because that's what business is all about. If you're making terrible bread, no one's going to eat your bread. But if you talk to owners, again, they want to do right by the residents, because they understand that if they're doing right by the residents and providing the best product that they can, just like that bread baker, they're going to be able to sell more bread, and they're going to be able to charge market rate or a good premium for that bread. And you know what? The clients are going to love it too, because when they go eat that bread, it's going to be the best bread they've had, so they might be willing to spend a couple of extra bucks for it. So I think when you relate multifamily back to small business and what small business is all about, I think that you can relate to the owners of these properties who want to give great product, but in return they also want to make good profits, and they want to share those profits back and put the money back into the property as well. And I think that's that is all the way good, all the way around. And I think we shouldn't be shy about talking about this. I think that a lot of people these days are very polarized about feeling one way or the other about things like rent control. But I think that we need to get away from those sort of polarized views, and we need to really think about these as businesses. Because believe me, if there's not a big incentive for people to build businesses like multifamily owners, then you're not going to have people that are going to care about the residents, and you're going to have really terrible places to live. And I think that's not what we want, as a country.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that so much of our economy is small business, and so much of that fabric is real estate. And so you can see the impact that can have on people's lives. And I like what you said in terms of, really needing to be on the side of things where we are stewards of those assets, understanding that we have a responsibility even as stewards to make sure that we're moving things forward towards, towards positive impact. I'm curious, just to dig into something you mentioned, I get a sense for how you think of impact sort of qualitatively, but I'm wondering how you think of impact quantitatively. So obviously we talked a little bit about profitable businesses and how they're good for residents as well. And that's something you can measure, and that's a metric that you can measure. Are there other measurements that you use to say measure tenant satisfaction, or how do you know that you're doing that well? How do you know that you're actually accomplishing that goal of impacting those lives in a positive way?
Well, we can never assume as people that are operating a business to know what the customer is thinking. Actually, what we need to really do is ask the customer what they're thinking. That's the best way to know whether they're happy or they're not happy, or if there's things that we need to improve. And so some of the things quantitatively that we are completely focused on are, number one would be the online reviews, especially Google reviews. If you bring up any property, any big property, you're going to see a Google business listing if you Google search for that property. And actually, Google business listings, the reviews on those listings have become the number one place that people go to look at reviews when they're looking for apartments. It's even more popular than apartments.com reviews, and apartment ratings was something that was very popular several years ago. But Google business listing is really the place where people go when they want run a rented apartment and know how people think, how customers think, or renters think of your product. And so we're constantly monitoring Google reviews. And when we see bad reviews coming through, we are actually going back and figuring out who posted the review and how we can apologize and make it better. And if there's something that's not right, we want to fix it. And we're actually grateful for those reviews. We don't take them personally or take them in a bad way. We actually think that people are speaking their mind, and we want that. And even the positive reviews, which we get a whole lot of them, we're responding to each one of those reviews online and letting people know that we hear them and we appreciate their comments. I think responding to reviews publicly is a super important part of what we do. Not only that we respond, but also that we apologize if there's been something that's been done wrong, and that we actually work to see how we can improve that thing that went wrong. So quantitatively, Google reviews, paying attention on reviews. The second thing that we do is we have a maintenance survey and a move-in survey that goes out to every single resident that interacts with us through a work order or a move-in, even a move-out, actually. And so we monitor those reviews and those surveys, and they give us feedback, and lots of feedback comes in. I mean, there's people that give us feedback, and so we're able to quantitatively see, because we get ranked on the surveys 1 through 5, so we can know if our service was terrible or if our service was excellent, and then we also look at the comments. Asking the customer how you're doing is really the best way to know whether you're really doing right by the customer, and giving the customer simple simple ways to give you that feedback and quantify it is 100% the way that you are going to improve your offering. And that is something that we're huge believers in and that we do with every single work order that comes in. So if you want to know how to quantify it, that's how you quantify the feedback.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I appreciate, your interest to gather that feedback. I think a lot of folks would rather sort of turn a blind eye to particularly the negative feedback. As you said, it can be tough to hear it at times, but taking a posture of humility, I think, is what I'm hearing from you, and recognizing that we can all continuously improve. And so this client, this resident, is doing nothing but giving us a data point to help us improve. And I really appreciate that about.
Well, I agree. And,
look,
it's, if there's a lot of things that happen at the corporate level, the president level or the CEO level, I actually always make time, and I see every single review that comes in across our portfolio. And I actually take the time to read every review. I have it linked to my phone, and it pops up when there's a review, be it good or be it bad. And I will take time to look into it and work with my team to understand what went wrong. Because I want my team to understand that we as a company, from the very top to the very bottom, we all have to care about what the customer is telling us, because at the end of the day, they are the reason why we exist. We don't do our job right by them, then we don't have a business. And so I think as an executive at your company, you really have to be committed personally to making it your top objective to respond to feedback, to take feedback into consideration, to be welcoming of feedback, even when it's negative, and to let your people know that it's okay for negative feedback to come in and that we're all going to make mistakes. But at the end of the day, customers always remember how you made them feel when something went wrong. I don't think most people will actually understand that something went wrong, but what they won't settle for and understand is if you completely ignored them when they said they had a problem with something went wrong. So, how you handle the challenges and the adversities with your customers is really going to make the difference of how they feel about you. And ultimately, they'll give you good reviews because you come back from a problem. And I've seen it happen time and time again. You've got to be committed to that.
Hey, JC, I have a follow-on question to that. I love the analogy of making bread and making good bread. And if you make good bread, people are going to want more of it. And in your business, I just heard you talking about your team and how your team is, it's obviously a part of the bread that you make. And so I'm wondering, what makes an awesome Velo employee? For you guys, what do you look for? What are some of the characteristics that lead to really good bread making in your organization?
The number one thing that we look for in an employee that wants to come work with us is integrity, right? So if there's someone that wants to come work with us and they don't have a high bar of doing right, even when nobody's looking, that's a person that we really don't want to be on our team. And integrity is worth so much, because that just means that you're always trying to do the right thing. And nobody's perfect, and we don't expect perfection, and we're okay with mistakes. But I think when you have integrity, you're just always trying to do what's right. Whether it's doing what's right with your fellow employees, whether it's doing what's right with the customer, whether it's doing what's right with the ownership groups that we're working for. I think that having a high level of integrity is essential, and it's something that we don't compromise on. That's not something that we'll look over if it's not there. A couple of other things would be intelligence and basically a get it done attitude, just making it happen, right? I think that intelligence is fairly straightforward. It actually doesn't mean that you could be doing a job for 5 years and you may know how to do that job, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you've got, a lot of intelligence behind it. I mean, really intelligence comes down to, can you problem solve when things come up that you haven't necessarily been trained to do? And that's where we really look for, is people that can problem solve in unique and unique ways and figure out the answers that aren't necessarily obvious. And by the way, that doesn't mean they have to come up with their own answers. That means that they should be willing to ask the experts. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I say in meetings that I don't know the answer, and that I need to go talk to somebody who does. And I think we need to be okay with that as a culture at our companies, and encourage people to say that they don't know, and it's totally right and okay to say that. And then the go get it done. I mean, look, elbow grease is a part of any company, and being willing to put the work in is probably more important than being intelligent, to be honest with you. And that's something, again, that I think is inherent in who you are. So those are the three things we try to look for: integrity, intelligence, and a get it done attitude. That those things go a long ways towards making a successful employee.
JC, I'm curious, how do you screen for those things? So are there ways in which you can screen for those in the early days, or is a lot of it, you got to hire to be able to figure out if they have those qualities?
It's such a great question. In my career, I've seen people that interview horribly, and we've given them a shot, and they have blown us away with their capabilities. And I've also seen people that have interviewed brilliantly, and they failed in what they do. So a couple of things that we try to do to ensure the success, and it's always a crapshoot, right? You just don't know until you hire them, unfortunately. But one of the things that we try to do is we try to look at a lot of different options. So interview a lot of people. Never just get hooked on the first person that you talk to. Get a lot of different perspectives and a lot of different looks at different people, so that you open up your eyes to what's out there. The second thing is that you want to, if you can, you want to try to talk to people that know these people, and ideally people that you know as well, that can really give you a bird's eye view on how these people function, especially under pressure or in situations where they have to problem solve outside the box. So having references, I think that you guys have in common is super helpful. And then the third thing, which I actually really do enjoy, is I like to, during interviews, give people scenarios that they would encounter in the actual position, and let them talk through in an open-minded approach, talk through how they would handle it, and really sort of just hone in on sort of not necessarily what the answer is, because there is no right answer, but what their thought process is and how they actually think through the solution. Because I think that also really helps to uncover kind of, how people are going to function. And by the way, that doesn't mean that in that particular interview that you need to have them answer it on the spot. You can give them a homework assignment. You can say, hey, just for example, I've got this, this underwriting budget that I need to put together. And as part of your interview, I would love it if you might just spend a few minutes, after we interview, and maybe give your shot at putting together the underwriting budget for this, and put a couple notes on anything that you may need help with or that you may have comments on, and send it back to me tomorrow. If you're going to hire somebody for underwriting, giving them a little bit of a task to do an underwriting is, like, I think, such a great way to see how they work and think, and that's going to help you to make a decision.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So you talked a little bit about the challenges that, you can present to that candidate and have them tell you a little bit about how they would think through meeting that challenge. I'm curious, obviously you're doing your work through your team, as Dan asked you about, you're leading and developing a team that is actually interfacing with your residents. When you think about that team, what are some challenges that you're facing or that they're facing that you maybe you get excited about seeing them overcome, or what are some challenges that you're actively
it's really
together?
simple. That's actually a really easy answer. So every day that I wake up and every day that I try to serve my employees as a leader at the company, is I try to figure out what back office work that they're having to deal with that we can virtualize or automate and take off their plate. On-site managers, for example, that's the biggest reason why any property is going to be successful or not successful, especially when it comes down to profits and long-term performance. It's going to be with a great manager. I've seen it time and time again. And so the problem with our industry is that we put so much back office work on our on-site managers' plates that we completely frustrate and burn them out with a bunch of stuff that doesn't really have to do with making the customer happy, right? Their job is to make the residents happy, to bring prospects in the door and greet them when they come in, and show them around the property, show them the model unit, and let them feel like they're walking into home. So when we as stewards of these employees, when we start making them do all kinds of stuff like process invoices or take work orders and put them into the system, or take a bunch of phone calls from prospects that are calling in to set up appointments to come tour the property, what we're really saying to them is, hey, we want you to do all kinds of stuff that doesn't have anything to do with what you do best. And I think that actually causes a lot of frustration. It causes a lot of stress, and it causes them to not have time to do the stuff that they really want to do, and it burns them out, and then you end up getting turnover. So, the number one thing that I really think of every day in terms of what I'm supposed to be doing at this company is I'm trying to think about these on-site managers and these maintenance guys, and I'm trying to think about how we can make their lives better by reducing the back office work that they're doing. So we do, at our company, we're huge on virtualization. So we have virtual humans, we have virtual intelligence bots, artificial intelligence bots. We have a lot of things that take a lot of the work off the traditional work off the manager's plate when it comes to back office stuff, and we virtualize it. And we're thinking of more things that we can do, but by doing that, we're actually making them more productive, and believe it or not, they're more happy. And when you have happy on-site managers, guess what? You're going to have happy residents. And when you have happy residents, you're going to make money as an owner, and your customers are going to be happy. So, we think that this is, completely complementary to running a profitable business.
Yeah, that makes sense. Go ahead, Dan.
I'm just wondering who you consider an ideal customer on the owner side. It sounds like you guys have a really unique way of operating property that seems very tech focused and very forward thinking. Who tend to be the owners that want to opt into a management style like that?
Well, that's a great question. I think that owners that are frustrated with traditional management companies and the way they're run, and frustrated with the way that their on-site staff are not being given the tools to be successful. I think those are the ones where this unique and new way of thinking really resonates with them. So when we talk about putting the on-site manager ahead of people and the maintenance people ahead of other people, and really not even talking about the corporate side of the company. Velo Residential is a third-party management company. We got a lot of corporate employees, but they're really not the stars of the show. The stars of the show are these on-site people. And so I think that the owners that really resonate with us are the ones that actually have seen by experience that the on-site staff, if treated well and managed well, can just make for incredible performance at the properties. I think those are the owners that really go, wow, what you're saying makes a lot of sense. And that's a great thing, because I think owners are very in tune, as I said before, with great service to the clients or the customers, and they're very in tune with keeping their on-site staff happy because they know that that's the way to profitability.
To your earlier point, I do think that profile can be rare sometimes in the industry, just in the sense that there's a lot of old school thinking, but I like to see more people coming around to understanding that these things aren't mutually exclusive. You can invest in an outstanding resident experience and know that that's going to come out the other end in a better bottom line. So I love that that's what you guys are about.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of owners also, I think that they are starting to realize in this current market that is so hard to find great talent and keep great talent at your properties. There's somebody that wants to hire your on-site manager, and they want to take them away from you right now. And there's somebody that wants to hire your lead maintenance, and they want to take them away from you right now. And so I think owners are starting to see that it's really becoming much more important to take care of their employees so that they stay with them at their properties, because that's where the magic happens. If you've got a revolving door of people that are coming and going every 6 months, that are managing and maintaining your property, I think you really understand and you see the struggles of how hard it is to get the property to catch traction. So I think that now in this market where it's so hard to find talent and keep talent, I think that's where I think owners are really seeing how important this is to them.
Yeah, it makes a ton of sense, JC. I think it's kind of the saying I've heard before: if you take care of your employees, they'll take care of your customers, and your customers will take care of your investors. It kind of starts with the people that are on the front line and really making sure that they're taking care of the sort of the food chain there. I'm curious from your perspective. You're obviously passionate about impacting the lives of your residents and your employees as well. Can you just tell me a little bit about what's the fire in the belly here for you? What makes you jump out of bed in the morning, and do what you do
I've
every
always
day?
been a builder of things. And I think it took me a little while to figure it out after I got out of college. But I clearly remember as a little kid, I'm telling you, I was probably 4 or 5 years old. I remember that my mom would buy me a box of Lincoln logs or, colored building blocks with, yellows and greens and, and reds and whatnot. And I remember that I would sit there for hours and I would just organize all the blocks into the specific colors. I would put them in different rows and I would just organize things. And so I just love to build stuff and to make it right and to keep it neat and consistent. And that's an operator at heart. And that's where I really found my spark and my passion and what I'm really good at. And so, a lot of the stuff that you see that I'm doing at Velo, at the management company is basically just, taking that concept and pushing it forward. It's building something and organizing something and working out the bugs and the kinks and putting amazing people into the company to help grow it and to help keep it organized and ultimately to build a machine that really is a profit generator for our owners and that functions well, that is oiled well, that all the gears are operating the way they're supposed to. And so, when you take on sort of a project, I think for me, my happiness and my passion comes from seeing every day things get a little bit better and the success happen a little bit more and things work a little bit better and just seeing those pieces come together. And so that's what makes me so happy, right? As I get up and I see all these amazing people and they're all they understand what they're supposed to be doing and they're working in the same direction. And it's not to say that things aren't perfect because they never are with any company, but I think that's part of the excitement is, if they were going perfectly, how boring would that be? Being able to problem solve and get together as a team and go, hey, this is a major deal. How can we fix it? That's the fun part, right? That's where we get to be creative and come up with ideas that we haven't thought of before. And so, that's what gets me excited, right? The same old thing every day, that doesn't get me excited.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, I love it. You're a builder. You like to build stuff, and I love to knock stuff down. So you and I, we could have some fun putting blocks together.
We could. That's very complimentary, actually. Somebody's got to break it down for me to build it back up.
There you go. I can create problems if you need some problems.
I love it.
Cool. Well, this was fascinating. I feel like we got a good sense for you and your business and the impact that you're having. I'm going to hand it over to Dan to take us through the lightning round.
Awesome. So this will be fun here, getting to know you a little bit on a personal level. So a few quick questions for you. JC, personal or professional, whichever way you want to take it. What's your biggest win?
Oh, wow. My biggest win. Sheesh. My biggest win is my wife. She's been a blessing in my life. And I married up, as they say.
Awesome. Glad to hear it. That's the right answer.
We'll send this
According to
recording
her. Yeah, that's right.
Favorite movie? Have a favorite movie?
Oh, wow. Gosh, there's a lot of movies that I've enjoyed. Off the top of my head, I'm going to go with Pulp Fiction.
Okay.
That was, to me, such a great movie, but also just deeply, intelligently great as well. I really enjoyed Pulp Fiction. I'm going with Pulp Fiction.
That's a good one. Favorite food?
Favorite food? I'm actually going to go with sushi.
Wasn't that your
It's
answer
my favorite
too?
too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I
Yeah,
love
that was
good
my
sushi.
That's a
answer.
really good one. Okay, and I'm guessing out there where you are, you get a lot of access to it. Pittsburgh isn't exactly the sushi capital of the world, but
It's not what I would think would be the sushi capital,
have to
but
fly
I'm sure
it
you
in.
guys know of a couple spots. The key is to get it flown in fresh.
yeah, we do have a couple
Yeah,
spots.
there you go.
Current growth edge. What are you working on these days?
Velo Residential is what I'm working on, and we are, we're just building out the company, and so, every day we're getting a little better, and that's my focus right now.
Yeah. And how about any A+ content that you take in? What's the, podcasts, or what do you read? What sort of shapes the way you think these days?
Right now, if I look over to my left of some of the books that I'm looking at, the one that I've been reading is it's called How to Write Copy That Sells. Actually, it is. I'll hold it up for you guys. It's by Ray Edwards, and if you guys like to write content that gets eyeballs and on social media posts, this is an amazing book that really kind of gets at the heart at how you capture someone's attention with solving a problem that they're thinking about and how you word it properly. This is an excellent book that is helping our company and myself personally to make better posts about how we're helping our clients and how we're helping them solve their problems.
That's awesome. And along those lines, where can people follow along with what you do? I know you do put out some content, and I know you're thoughtful about this stuff. So how can our listeners keep up with you and with Velo?
Yeah, all they got to do is go to our website, veloresidential.com. That's Velo, VELO, like velocity, VELO, residential.com. And we've got a blog section where we put out content. You can also follow us on LinkedIn or Facebook by just searching for Velo Residential. And you can follow our pages, and we try to put out as much good content as we can.
Awesome. Thank you.
Well, JC, it's been great having you on the show today. I got a lot out of this discussion. One of the things I'm taking away for sure is your comment that profitable properties are not just good for the owners, but also for residents too. And I would just say a lot of our listeners are investors, and I think it's important for them to hear that when you're investing in particularly real estate through maybe a fund or a property that's being managed by somebody like yourself, it's important to hear a little bit about that impact that they're having on the employees and on the residents and on the lives and the fabric of the communities. I think that's really important to understand that our dollars really do have impact. And I got a little bit of a piece and a little bit of a vantage point from you about that today. So thank you again, JC. Thanks for our listeners for listening in.